Hey guys, it's Sean from SeanSean.co. I also do specials on eBay. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do the top 5 things you can't do in Germany. So one really obvious thing is, you can't really talk about the Nazis. Really. So basically, everyone knows what happens, kind of. World War II, the Holocaust happened, 67 million Jews, mostly focused on Jews, but also others, minority groups like gay, lesbian, different ethnic groups as well, but primarily the Jews, but they threw some other groups in there as well, like gypsies. They're all killed by the German government under Adolf Hitler, right? So that's a really delicate topic to talk about in Germany. What happened after the war, the Americans and Soviet Union, they split up Germany.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate.
So they split up the country in 2 pieces. So in the West Germany, they kind of reformed. The American government forced them to kind of adjust their government so that hopefully the Nazis wouldn't come about again. They also banned the Boy Scouts because the Boy Scouts were converted into the Hitler Youth, which is really interesting. So basically, like in America, you have all these activities for kids, but in Germany, they don't have it well organized. You have some sport kind of activities, but they don't have these nice camping skills that I learned as a Boy Scout, which I think is really cool, how to turn knots.
The square knot is a binding knot, typically used in boating, securing bandages in a medical setting, and home and garden.
Survive in the wilderness a little bit, survive in the snow. Build igloos. All kind of really interesting skill sets you don't really necessarily use in real life, day to day, but you use it, in an extremist survival situation, which is always handy to know that in the back of your mind. So they eliminated that. So basically, people have come to terms with it, but it's kind of a hush-hush topic. The German humor basically sucks because they can't talk about this period and they can't make jokes about it. So basically, German humor is not going to be that funny. It's kind of slapstick at this point. Sometimes you get something, but it's nothing compared to really funny English cynical humor or something like that. Just doesn't exist as far as, you have a comedy, but it's a different form of comedy, and usually it's not that funny. Not that German people aren't funny, but it just, it's affected the humor, you could say. Now, on the other twist of the coin, I mentioned earlier, the Soviet Union took East Germany, obviously. So what happened here was, after the war, they made it a communist government, right? So it's a dictatorship. Horrible things. They had the Stasi, which was this internal spy group.
Achtung, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
And they would spy on their own citizens. So it was like up to 1 in 5 citizens would report to the Stasi in some form or another on their neighbors. So basically, you couldn't trust anyone. Everyone's spying on everyone. So a really terrible situation, which is sad because that's kind of like what the Nazis did under, the SS. So kind of the continuation. And then at the same time, while they have this terrible government splitting the original Germans, they taught the East Germans that the Nazis were all from West Germany. So when the country reunified in 89, 91, they blended the countries. They made the economic union 1-to-1 on the mark. And then they switched to euros later, but they made it 1-to-1 on the mark, but they weren't competitive to work. So obviously they said, oh, your wages are the same in East Germany. But in any communist country, they, especially for any of the state businesses, not any business that's really capitalist or pseudo-capitalism, but the ones that really didn't have any experience with capitalism, they would just do completely shoddy work. All their cars would fall apart in a couple, a month out of the assembly line. You'd already have your car having, semi-serious issues. Which is a total joke, that's why all those cars were destroyed after the war. There was a few saved because people liked the nostalgia, but in general, all those cars were lost. And the Berlin Wall was obviously destroyed for 99.9% of it. Yeah, so when they reunified, you had these people that thought the West Germans were the Nazis and they were the good East Germans that were the communists. All this brainwashing had its effect after 40 years. And basically the neo-Nazis sprung out of the East Germans because they weren't able to survive really well. They made the very poor transition to capitalism. Obviously the kids that were 18 probably did okay, but a little bit older, 20s maybe, they just didn't do well. And a lot of their parents, got, I saw this when I lived in Poland, where the household would just completely collapse because one or two people they would get fired, and it would be such a shock, then they would sometimes commit suicide. Like this guy I knew in Poland, he committed suicide, and he had a family and everything, but he just couldn't deal with the fact that he lost his job for life from the government and had to actually compete. So yeah, some of the stuff happened like this, and then neo-Nazism kind of rose up in the East German. And they tried to pour a whole bunch of money in that to kind of fix that, which led to a huge construction boom and then a huge construction bust when I was living there. And literally I don't remember exactly, but I think it was like 3 to 5% of your paycheck went to East Germany to rebuild all the Autobahn and all the infrastructure. And so they way overbuilt. So it's at some point, actually, when the bust occurred, they actually had to destroy all this building they just built because no one was living in there, because everyone had left to West Germany where the jobs were all at. So why would you bother staying in East Germany, right? So that's kind of an issue when they reunified a little bit, but you'll still see that East-West divide in Germany. So yeah, you kind of want to be touchy on that topic. The weird thing too is, for example, this is really Austria, but I had Austrian friends, if you talk to them about the Nazis, it's a whole different thing. So they were taught that the Germans invaded, even though you have all these photography of them celebrating the street when, I think it was like 38, when the Nazis rolled into Austria and took over the government. They were celebrating when they came in. So there was a good chunk of the population that was happy about it. Hitler coming to rise and taking over Austria, making it the greater Germany. So yeah, I had this Austrian bartenders, and it was so crazy. We were like bartending and in Marriott, and he turns to me one day and this one night, and he's like, "Hey, you know what today is?" And I was like, "No, what's today?" He's like, "Oh, it's Hitler's birthday." He's like, "Dude, if we won the war, we'd be celebrating today." I was like, "Dude, the guy killed like 67 million people, and they're making a joke like this." But yeah, so the Austrians, they don't feel guilty about Hitler. Only the poor West Germans do, and the East Germans don't feel guilty either. It's obviously the evil West Germans, but I think they've kind of repaired this over time. The next generation out, obviously they got rid of those type of educating in East Germany once West Germany took it all over. But yeah, that's one big point. Another point is fairness in business practices or in your visa practices if you don't speak German well. So I asked my wife about this, and she brought up this really good example, which I had totally forgotten. place it on my mind, but it apparently happened. So I had a laptop, and something broke in the laptop. Maybe it was the battery or something. So I took it in. They said they fixed it. Brought it home. Doesn't work. Take it back. Said they fixed it. Come back. Da 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 da. So it was like 3 times, right? So the 4th time, my wife said, "That's bullshit." So she shows up at the stop. She says, like, she uses my first taboo. So she says, like, "Oh, what is it? Foreigners aren't good enough for you? You think I have dark hair? You think I'm Turkish? You know, fuck you. Are you guys back to the Nazis treating people like shit, you know?" So yeah, my wife's a little bold. So basically, yeah, they snapped to it and said, "All right," and they'll fix it, but only because my wife spoke really fluent German. And so then at that point, there's like, "Oh, I better do some shit. People are gonna talk crap about me in German." So I don't know if that's there nowadays, because with social media, you can always out someone, and then it's, you know, you ruin someone's business on Yelp or these kind of services where you rate people. So this might be gone, but there's definitely an issue where if you don't speak German well, yeah, don't be expected to be treated fairly. Another thing you can't do is if you come from the slower parts of the US or Australia or wherever you're from, and you're used to kind of a nice leisurely drive on the highway, you can't do that. You can't even do that in the city. So in the city, what happens is these idiots, for whatever reason, let me cross over here. So these guys, every single stoplight is not timed. So in the US, in a lot of areas in the US, there'll actually be routes where you can go through certain parts of a city, in urban areas, where all the stoplights will be timed. So if you drive at a certain speed, whatever it is, say it's 35 and you drive at 32 or whatever the average speed is to make those, you can actually make all those lights. That happens in San Francisco, that happened where I lived in Indiana. So I've seen this all over the US, but in Germany, no. No matter how slow or how fast you drive, it's literally stoplight, green, stoplight, green, stoplight, green. So you're never gonna hit any 2 greens. It's super frustrating when you're going through traffic. It makes traffic worse. So people literally just race stoplight to stoplight inside the city. So that's one danger. You don't have to race, but people are gonna be really aggressive in the city. But the faux pas is on the Autobahn. So the way the German law works, and I think this is true in some other parts of Europe, but especially in Germany, is you can only pass really on the left. If you pass on the right, so if it's 2-lane highway, you're passing the right lane and someone's in the left lane, you can only pass them about, you know, within 5-10K speed. So basically, you know, as if you were in traffic and you're kind of passing someone really slowly. So that's okay. But if you pass them like, say, 10K faster, 15K faster, you know, where you're really passing them because they're slow in the left lane, that's actually I want to say at the time it was about 300 marks. So it's they probably made it like at least 200 euros fine, where if you pass on the right going a little fast, boom, 200 mark just for passing someone on the right? So you definitely want to pass someone on the left. So what does this cause? Anyone that's aggressive, they dominate the left lane. And they'll literally come up and they'll flash their lights. They'll get their turn signal and they'll be like, boom, boom, boom. And then they'll honk their horn, and it's just, it's absolutely terrifying. So a good example is while I was driving in Germany, you know, I'm driving, like in my other story, I was driving back and forth between Frankfurt and Brussels in Belgium. It's usually 5 to 6 hour drive. It's 3 hours if you drive at night, because you can drive really fast, right? So I'm literally driving, I don't remember what I was driving at that time. Say it was like at least 90, maybe 110, I don't know. I kind of drove in that range, right? So I'm driving, passes some people up, and this was very typical. About every hour, you have some maniac that would be literally driving like 150 to 170 or something in a Porsche, or maybe a nice 7 Series BMW, and they just race up on you and flash the lights, honk the horn, and you just see them in your left. You just see them in your rear view mirror. in your car and you'd be like, oh, there's flashing lights back there. And then the next thing you know, they're right on your ass. So what you would have to do is kind of, you do a little dance where you go back and then you kind of circle around. So a lot of times on the Autobahn, you want to, if you're in the left lane for whatever reason, if you see someone coming up and you got some space, just pull out of the way, slow down, and then circle back around them. So that's how you do it in Germany. So you can't hog the left lane. They're gonna freaking up your ass, and with good reason. So my wife always says in America, because it's the opposite. In America, it's like, if the lane's free for like one car length, it's freaking yours, you know? So she says it's like the highway's mine kind of attitude in America. So if you're German, don't do that in Germany. In America, people are not gonna give a shit, and they're gonna cut you off on the left lane and ride it slow. They don't care. So, you know, people generally go faster in the left lane, and it's a common courtesy to get out of your way, especially in the countryside where people drive nicer, but in the city, don't expect any niceness in America like this in Germany, where they the drive is controlled. Another thing that's really interesting in Germany, which is actually a positive, it's not a negative, but when you merge and you have like, you're coming off the highway and say it merges with another exit and then it merges onto the main, where they merge that first merge, they're just gonna go 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. They literally will merge really fast, 40 50 miles an hour, whatever, but they will not try to cut each other off. Now, this is not the case in America. Everyone's trying to get 1 inch faster, so they'll cut everyone off and it create a huge traffic jam. But in Germany, this doesn't happen, so that's really cool. Now, another thing you don't want to do is when you first start if you work in Germany or you decide to get married in Germany, I did both, never declare your religion. No matter how religious you are, what's going to happen if you go to your job and say, oh, I'm Catholic, or I'm Protestant, or I'm Muslim, or whatever it is, whatever religion you declare, cha-ching, 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 they're literally going to take 10% of your paycheck and send it to that church. And you cannot get out of it. It's so crazy. You have to declare yourself as atheist after that, I think, to get out. I mean, you can write some paperwork and somehow get out of it, but so never declare your religion. So, you know, I'm atheist, so it didn't really impact. I'm like, yeah, of course I'm atheist. But my wife from Spain, you know, when they went to, it's a really good story. She went, I think it was, I don't know what job it was, but she went to some job and they said, oh, you're from Spain, you must be Catholic. Oh, she was at the official paperwork place, right? For visas or something. And they're like, oh, you must be German, are you a Nazi? So yeah, my wife used that kind of Nazi taboo card a lot when someone pisses her off. She definitely doesn't, but you know, if someone gets so obnoxious like that, you have to declare your religion. It's like, I'm not paying you 10%, it's so ridiculous, right? So another thing about the 10% salary deduction for religion, that's also to counter the rise of fascism again. So that's one of the other tricks they adopted to kind of neuter any kind of extremist rising by giving a lot of power to the church again. As far as, you know, they have some money, they can protect citizens, and, you know, people feel obligated. So that's part of the reason for the 10%, although I still think it's just totally crazy. So we got married. The really interesting thing when you get married is the only thing that really counts is the state wedding. So the ones where you go to the state government and you get your passport stamped and all that by the government, you do the official paperwork. The church wedding does not count. If you get a church wedding only in Germany, you are not officially wedded. You do not have all the documentation that goes with wedding. It's only a ceremony only. You can do both, obviously, but you definitely have to do the state wedding. So you don't really waste your time with a religious wedding in Germany. And because of this, 10% gain they get out of everyone's salary, they literally will not open a lot of churches except for the most touristy churches. So you go to a lot of churches, 6 days out of 7 closed. They're not there to be open. They're not there to take you confession, or if you're another version of Protestantism, they don't have confession, but they literally do not open the church. So they're not welcome. They're kind of like, screw you, get lost, it's not Sunday. So that leads to my other point. Make sure you got all your food on Saturday, because on Sunday, that sucker's closed, dude. None of the food shops are open. None of the clothing shops are open. None of the gift stores are open. Museums are mostly closed. Well, museums might be open. That might be an exception. You know, all your stores for everything you need around the house are closed. So literally, if you run out of food on Saturday, you are SOL. The only thing that open on Sunday is some restaurants and a cinema. So really what you do on Sunday, you'll be bored out of your mind. You walk and stroll up and down the main shopping strip and you just do window shopping and then you go back home. So I used to hate Sundays in Germany. The only thing good about that is if you can't do anything on Sunday except go hiking or something like really nice, enjoy nature and all that junk. I think that's kind of gone away, a sense that now you can just go online and buy stuff. So it's not, you're not feeling that edging of, I mean, if you need food, you're screwed. You have to go out to eat at a restaurant. But outside of that, if you want to buy some articles, you just go online and buy them, right? So they're really shooting themselves in the foot, at least all the retail shops. So they're going to cause the death of retail faster in Germany by keeping this protection for retail shops. But it's kind of to balance out the large versus small. And, you know, a lot of small shops are mom and pop businesses. So, you know, if they didn't have that day off, they would literally be working 7 days a week. They might not see their family both on the same day on the weekend. So this way it gives them one day off. They can actually enjoy the weekend with their family. So it's a nice respect. But if you're American and used to 24/7 access, Australia, Tokyo is probably like this. A lot of places in the world have 24/7 access. So you're gonna lose it. It used to drive me nuts, and my wife is like, "What's your problem? I don't know why you don't like Sundays. This is awesome." But yeah, the only thing good about that being closed on Sunday, by Monday you're ready to go back to work. So there's not really that saying of, "Oh, Mondays, I hate Mondays," because you literally couldn't do anything on Sunday. So you're really like, "God, I got to get out of the house. Let me go to work. I can do something." And then the shops are open during my breaks. You really look forward to Monday, which is really odd. So probably the day you don't look forward to is maybe like a Wednesday or something. But yeah, it was one of those odd experiences. Anyway, I'll give you another minor one past my 5 here. So another odd thing that happens in Germany, which really pissed me off being American. Usually people don't do this, at least. It might happen here and there, but it's pretty infrequent. But it's pretty common in Germany. So what you'll see is you're in a subway, someone slips on the stairs and falls down. Boom, face plant, right? People will literally laugh, ha, 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 and then they'll keep walking. They don't help the person out. You're like, dude, this is so terrible. Like, how can you laugh at someone just fell down? I know some kids would laugh, obviously, but they don't try to help each other out. It's really, like, that would grate on my nerves so much. Another thing is they won't necessarily be polite in public. So, you know, if you're getting a waitress or something, it's okay. It's not like American or Mexican service, which is really top of the level, 5-star service. So you get decent service, but I had a story of the restaurant, order some cafe. They're taking forever, you know. I guess they're busy, but didn't seem that busy, right? It's a coffee, you pour coffee, it's not that hard. So they're slacking kind of. And I turned around and the waitress was passing by. I didn't see her, right? So I actually bumped her and she almost dropped her stuff. So she starts yelling at me, "What are you doing? You're interrupting my, This is crazy, it's outrageous, da, da, da." And I'm like, dude, I pay your salary. What the hell? This is terrible service. How can you do this? And we just got into this brouhaha at each other's throats because, you know, apparently it wasn't acceptable that I bump into her by accident. And it's like, obviously it was unintentional. She's obviously had a bad day. I don't want to say this happens all the time in Germany, but yeah, you can have some pretty shit show kind of, you know, people just are rude. So I wouldn't say it's bad as, say, in China, which is very rude, but you know, that's just kind of a generalization from videos I've seen. But yeah, Germany, they can be a little bit rough on the edges. So yeah, don't expect. And another thing with the tips is there's no tips basically. You know, order $20-$30 of food, you can leave a couple mark coins are done. I mean, a couple euro coins, you're done. You don't expect much if you're a waiter, you know, from Germans. French or worse is going to be 0, Spanish 0, but Germany, yeah, they'll leave you a couple coins. Basically useless for living on. So they pay you a higher salary there if you're in service. So you get, you know, your minimum wage is kind of normal, like 15, whatever it is, $18 an hour. But yeah, you're not going to have, like in the US, it's actually the opposite, where say it's 18, you would only get 4 or 5 in service because they would expect you to make $10 in tips. But in Germany, that's not the case. They don't expect you to make tips, which is great, because if you got some American customers, they come and ask, hey, how much should I pay? We always used to tell them in the bars, like, oh, 15-20% is the normal. So we'd milk all these American customers that came into our sports bar. It was hilarious. So we'd walk out with $50, sometimes $100 a night each. And then we had our salary. It paid all our rent and all the utilities. So basically all that money was just for traveling, drinking. And there was no way to drink and party that much. You know, we did some fair amount of partying, but $50, $100 a night. What do you do with that? It's just crazy money for when you're in 20s, you know, you're not saving really. So it's just like, wow, it's just crazy amounts of money. You're always flush, so it's kind of a nice feeling. But anyway, that's my story of 5 things not to do in Germany. Hope you enjoy it, and I'll see you a dime. Recommend this if you like it, and you can subscribe below. And I hope to see you guys next time. Thanks for coming. Bye.